Good evening, everyone. As we finish at week 7 of our Psalms study, you looked at a sequence of Psalms beginning in Psalm 135 and concluding in Psalm 139. And one of the things I noticed is that as Dr. Russell broke up the sequence, that he had to skip Psalm 138. So I thought that tonight we would backtrack to Psalm 138 and take a look at that. And one of the first things that I noticed about this psalm is how it illustrates the ordering of the psalms in the book of Psalms. I don't think it's accidental that between Psalm 137 and Psalm 139, we have this psalm. This is not a random ordering, and we need to pay attention to the fact that immediately on the heels of Psalm 137, especially the end of that psalm with that gut-wrenching acknowledgement of unspeakable horror and loss, and the gripping desire for the Lord to take charge of doing vengeance and setting things right. Immediately on the heels of that, which ends rather abruptly, comes Psalm 138. And it's very instructive, I think, to see how Psalm 138 begins. I give you thanks, O Lord, with my whole heart. On the heels of relinquishing into the hands of the Lord the desire to be avenged, the desire to have justice done, the immediate move then is to thanksgiving. And notice how the thanksgiving is rooted. Verse 2, I bow down towards your holy temple and give thanks to your name for your steadfast love and your faithfulness. Because of who God is, because of that chesed, that faithful covenant, unfailing love, and because of that truth and fidelity and faithfulness, the same people who could cry out of that deep, wrenching darkness in Psalm 137 can now cry out in thanksgiving and praise. The only thing that makes that possible is the character of the God with whom they are in relationship. And then verse 3 of our psalm says, on the day I called, you answered me. In other words, the response of Yahweh to the prayer of the people in Psalm 137 was immediate. That cry for setting things right, that cry for being avenged and vindicated, the response of God to that prayer was immediate. Even if these people are still languishing in Babylon, even if the exile is not over, even if the physical, visible manifestation of the answer to prayer is still in the future, the answer was immediate. God's response to his people's prayer was immediate. And notice the second half of verse 3. You increased my strength of soul. I think it's really instructive that the answer to the prayer of Psalm 137 is not just about external circumstances. It's not just about setting right the things that have gone wrong out there. It's also about setting right the heart of God's people. One version says, you have increased strength within me. And so the people who prayed in Psalm 137 exposed themselves before the Lord and opened themselves to the work of the Lord in their hearts. And we'll come back to that in just a minute. And then verses 4 and 5 of our psalm, all the kings of the earth shall praise you, O Lord, for they have heard the words of your mouth. They shall sing of the ways of the Lord, for great is the glory of the Lord. There's a recognition on the part of the people who are praying that all these kings, all these powers, all these rulers, all these sources of power and domination and oppression, they're all penultimate. They will not have the last word. There is coming a day when these powers will recognize the glory of the Lord, the one who reigns forever. And then verse 6, a really astonishing claim. For though the Lord is high, he regards the lowly, but the haughty he perceives from far away. This is a really astonishing portrait of the glorious Lord that this psalm praises. The Christian Standard Version says, he takes note of the humble, but he knows the haughty or the arrogant from a distance. Isn't that interesting that pride and arrogance and the condition of our heart that sets ourselves up as the authorities keeps us distant from the Lord? Doesn't keep us from being known by him. The text says he knows them or perceives them, but from a distance. And so once again, we're back to the fact that the real heart of this prayer is not about changing external circumstances, but about changing the heart of those who are praying. And then in verses 7 and 8, there's an even though, and I think it's really important for us to go there. Even though I walk in the midst of trouble, even though I'm still in exile, even though things have not changed, even though injustice is raging around us. I learned a new word in German this week, and I love how powerful it is to express the circumstances of the people that are praying this psalm. The word is Nullpunkt. It's the 0 point. It's the lowest possible point of experience. And that's where these people are. They're still in Babylon. They're in the Nullpunkt of their experience with the Lord. Everything is still lost. The Babylonians are still ugly and cruel. Everything is still disastrously in ruins back in the homeland. And yet, in the midst of that, the psalmist prays, these are the things I know about you, Lord. I know that you preserve me against the wrath of my enemies. I know that you stretch out your hand and your right hand delivers me. I know that you will fulfill your purposes for me. I know that your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever. Right in the midst of the Nullpunkt, of the 0 point, of the darkest part of their experience, they can cry out and claim protection, salvation, purposeful living, and faithful presence. And again, it is rooted in the steadfast love of the Lord. And just to finish up, as we think about these Psalms in sequence, 137, 138, and 139, I think it's no accident that on the heels of 137 with its gut-wrenching prayer, and 138 with its choice to praise, comes Psalm 139, which begins, O Lord, you have searched me and known me. Psalm 139 is a prayer for deep inner illumination, that the Holy Spirit would lay out before these praying people the real condition of their heart, that they would be examined, and that whatever unclean motivations are in their hearts would be cleansed and removed. So the sequence of these three Psalms, 137, 138, and 139, is intentional and it's instructive for us. And so I would challenge you to go back and spend some time just reading through the three Psalms, one after the other, and asking the Lord to speak into your experience. Is there a part of your life where you find yourself at the nullpunkt, at the 0 point, at the darkest moment? Is there an experience of injustice and cruelty about which you cry out to the Lord for vindication and setting things right? And are you willing to enter into the spirit of Psalm 139, to have the Lord do his work in you as you trust him to do the work in your circumstances? God bless you.